So were you like taking on the look wanting to be Joan Jett, or were you wanting to sleep with Joan Jett?
Oh, I think both.
Yeah.
I mean, we would have been a full lesbian couple. We would just look exactly the same all the time. But we wouldn't have matching U-Hauls. We would just we would just be on motorcycles.
Motorcycles. Yes, motorcycles. Welcome to Wild and Sublime, a sexy spin on infotainment, no matter your preferences, orientation, or relationship style. Based on the popular live Chicago show, I chat about sex and relationships with citizens from the world of sex positivity and comedy. You'll hear meaningful conversations, dialogues that go deeper, and information that can help you become more free in your sexual expression. I'm sex educator and intimacy coach, Karen Yates. Our monthly Patreon supporters pay for a large part of our operating expenses. Their contributions from $5 on up help us big time. Plus, members get discounts on show tickets and merch and receive Wild and Sublime news before anyone else and more. Interested in helping us spread the message of sex positivity? Go to patreon.com/Wild and Sublime. Hey folks, welcome to Wild and Sublime, coming to you from the Lincoln Lodge podcast studio as part of the Lincoln Lodge podcast network. Before I introduce today's guests, I'm going to do a land acknowledgement. We are recording on the lands of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, in addition to a score of other tribes that lived here. This land is now colonially known as Chicago. On to our guests. Today, I'll be chatting with writer and laugh maker Elizabeth Gomez and humorist Adrienne Gunn. Both are podcasters, and both are currently hosting the podcast Don't Ruin This For Me, where they revisit books and films from the 80s and 90s and talk about how growing up with fictional best friends really fucks up your ideas about how to be a person. Elizabeth Gomez, they're laughing.
True.
Elizabeth Gomez is also the producer of Mixed Race Tape, a newsletter about everything. She's also founder of Chicago's oldest female roller derby league, Windy City Rollers. In 2025, Adrienne Gunn's hilarious first novel, I Love You, Charlie Bennett, which follows a desperate 30-something as she chases love on a reality TV dating show, will be coming out with Grand Central Publishing. You can visit her popular newsletter, Where the Fuck's My Happy Ending, on Substack. And we'll have everyone's links in the show notes. Adrienne and Elizabeth are here today because first, they are both very funny, and also because I was a guest on a recent episode of their podcast talking about Madonna's Truth or Dare and had a fantastic time. And to keep up with the theme of the past, I wanted to bring them on Wild and Sublime to talk about iconic celebrity crushes from adolescence. Let's replay the moments of sexual awakening and also talk about how these crushes still influence our lives today. We're going to be talking Star Wars, sexy 1990s ads, iconic rock stars, and The Love Boat. Elizabeth and Adrienne, welcome.
Thank you. Yes. You are not only invited onto our podcast, but you are one of our most popular podcasts.
Oh, really?
People were sending me messages about like how awesome they thought the whole podcast was. It was really fun.
It was great.
So thank you for coming.
You're quite welcome. And that podcast is what led me here to become a part of the Lincoln Lodge Podcast Network, because we were doing it here, and then producer Christine Ferreira talked to me afterwards.
She's also our producer.
Yeah,
thanks, Christine. Shout out.
Yeah. She's like, oh, you guys. So let's start. I want to start, Elizabeth, with you, because you have some very interesting, iconic celebrities. And we were all chatting just before we started recording about you are looking particularly tasty today. You're in your iconic celebrity mode. I guess you are becoming an iconic celebrity. Let's start here. Who do you want to start with? Don't say yet, but like summing it up. Just
I can already see it. I can see it.
Yes.
I am living in Hopewell, Virginia, in a small little ranch-style house. One that looks like a Lego block. Mm-hmm. And I'm in my living room. I may be like leaning against a chair, and I am hearing The Love Boat. And I loved that show because I always thought until I got later and realized that love doesn't exist. It was a show that like made my heart, like my little baby girl heart, like so happy, because there was this idea of finding love and these moments where you could be on these exotic trips and you might run into someone and you fall madly in love with them. But my favorite person, and the person who made my little nipples a little tingly, was Gopher, the waiter.
Yeah.
But what does he look like? Can you give me a description? I don't think I've ever seen.
His name was Fred. What is Fred?
Grandy.
Grandy, yeah.
I've never seen a full episode.
Or was it
of The
Fred
Love Boat.
Grady?
I think Grandy.
Was it? Okay.
We'll have to think about this. You've never seen a full episode of Love Boat?
No, because I'm younger than you.
That's true.
By approximately 7 to 8 years.
I'm just gonna act like I'm gonna just act like I don't hate you.
I'm gonna act like I didn't hear that because I know I'm older than Elizabeth, and I've seen probably all of the Love Boats.
I mean, I loved it. So he is probably like a medium height build. He has dark, fluffy. Because back then in the 80s, they always had floofy hair.
I love a floof.
Yeah, so floofy hair with like a heavy bangs.
Okay.
He would wear a white uniform with little black accents and black pants.
It was was it a short jacket?
Yeah, well, I feel like there's his casual outfit, which was like when he would just wear a white T-shirt with short sleeves that he'd tuck into his
Was
pants.
that for lunch?
Those would be like when he's just hanging around the boat to
Okay.
help people, because
Okay.
they don't serve lunch the whole time.
Right.
And then when it was like a formal dinner situation, there was a short jacket.
Cummerbund?
I can't remember
No,
that.
it was a short jacket. It was just like kind of
a waiter jacket.
yeah, it was like a
Okay.
short waiter jacket.
Okay.
But sometimes the captain wore a similar jacket. His just was, like a black one. I think Fred's was white. But I liked Gopher. He was like the comedic relief in the show, and he was always there being helpful. He was like, just adorable.
He was a bit of a fall guy. He was kind of the schmo. Wasn't he kind of the schmo of the show?
Yeah, he's always like the comedic, and like anything that was happening, he was either. But I think the thing that the Love Boat did really well is that they would always have these like big moments, and then they'd have one person on the boat, someone in the staff who's like, life is like the ocean. It is vast and it is wide. But if you look closer, like that kind of thing.
Do you feel Fred or I should say Gopher? Do you feel Gopher was that person, the poet of the ship?
I don't think that necessarily, but I do think he had enough moments in the show, and I can't recall very many of them at this moment. But I did feel like he had so much. He just kind of this genuine heart. He felt like someone you would know.
So how do you see, because I never saw him in a sexual context. In fact, I don't think I saw anyone on that show sexually. So it's kind of interesting.
Wait, not the balding captain?
Captain Steubing.
Yeah, but I found Julie attractive too.
Do you know what happened to her?
No, tell me.
Did you know she got booted off the show because she was a cokehead?
Oh, that makes sense. It was the 80s.
And they told her, I guess her storyline was she got married and had to leave.
Oh, yeah.
But she was like seriously into coke.
Yeah, I completely believe that. Because, I think when we talk about the 80s for this show, it was specifically like late 70s, early 80s vibes.
Yeah.
Right. We weren't even into the mid 80s yet.
Right.
Yeah. So that completely still like the world of disco. Like there was an episode where they're all dancing and
Andy Warhol was on. Did you ever see the Andy Warhol episode?
I don't remember that, but I may have not known who Andy Warhol was at the time.
He walked around with a Polaroid camera and would shoot, and then like they would come out, the Polaroid, come out, like the land camera, I think it was called. And then the Polaroid would zip out the front, and he would just be taking. I recall that he was mostly silent, but that was kind of a mind blower.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Warhol, that's kind of what he's known for. It's kind of being part of the background of all these events happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I think what probably was appealing to me about Gopher was just that he seemed like a sweet person.
And so, do you feel that this idea of the sweet, the sweet celebrity followed you through in your life as you sought?
No.
I'm just making all these faces. I have a lot of questions.
What's going on, Adrienne? What's going on?
First of all, how old are you in this story?
I must have been like 9.
Because I would
10.
say
I was a kid.
Elizabeth Gomez, her pop culture sex trajectory has nothing to do with sweet people.
No, because
okay, let's bring up celebrity number 2,
right?
Because this is more interesting.
The other one is Joan Jett.
Yeah, let's
once
get
I
started
started seeing the Runaways, and start seeing like women in leather jacket with short black hair and Converse. That is literally the look I still sport at 50.
Because Gopher to me sounds somebody I would like.
Yes. Yes.
And we're total opposites.
Yes,
so
I would agree with
interested-
that.
I'm interested in
It's good
10-year-old
that
Elizabeth.
it's good that the best friend is on, like kind of being like
Keep it honest. No.
No,
What do you think that sweetness is about? The attraction to the sweetness. Did the
Well, I
Love Boat not have a rock and roll character?
I don't
Okay.
think so.
Everybody
I felt like that
was
show was
nice.
very wholesome.
Okay.
It was
You know,
true,
there was
yeah.
Isaac he was the guy with the big mustache.
I would say
and
if
he
there
was
had
the
to be
bartender.
someone I really liked, it was Isaac.
Yeah.
Isaac was just like, he seemed
super
very
soulful.
Yeah, he seemed real. There was
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
about him that seemed real.
Yeah. I mean, the show is very wholesome. It's very like 80s. Like everyone in the family can come sit down and watch it. So there was never like real controversies. Every controversy was like, oh, someone broke my heart, you know? And
But wait, you were like 9 or 10 and you were like, I want to fuck this guy? What are we really
Oh, yeah, for
talking
sure.
about?
Yeah, what
here?
kind of sex? Did you want to have sex? Did
Like
you want to
what was happening? You were just like, he'd come on and you were like,
I felt
he makes
tingly
me
in all
hot.
my body parts.
Okay.
Let's
You were
just
like,
say it
he's
that way.
really
Yeah.
cute.
Right. Like
Okay.
I was just like, I was very much like, no, I think that I probably was into like sexual things early.
That was like
on.
me and Sean Cassidy.
Yeah.
David Cassidy's half brother.
Yeah. And then they
And
had
David
they had
Cassidy.
that show too, right? The Cassidys.
They weren't they in the Hardy? Sean Cassidy was in the Hardy Boys with, oh God, he was really hot. I can't remember his name. But then the Partridge Family.
Yeah.
David Cassidy. I was
Okay, that's
very
the
young.
show. That's the
yeah, I was
Partridge
very young.
Family.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that my evolution in how I felt about everyone and like what I started to get more deep into like trashy men is when I started to realize that men are trash.
So you're like, let's just pick the
I
ones
was
who
like,
are
let's
upfront
lean
about
in.
it.
Let's lean in.
Well, let's
ones
lean
who
into.
are
I want to
fun.
lean into Joan Jett because I sat down today and I watched her "I Love Rock and Roll" video. Holy shit, that's
Jesus
hot.
Christ. Yes.
That this boss bitch walks in to this juke joint,
Yeah.
and she just is like kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah, when she was
Oh my God, so hot.
I'm not wrong, right? She was part of the Runaways.
Yeah.
I think that's like
But
her
she was
first
the
band.
front woman.
Yeah, so she was like a young teenage girl who just looked like she just could take over the whole world. She would just be like, "This is my space. You guys are all just living in it." Like, and I remember that kind of vibe being like sizzle.
Well, what I found so interesting about the video, at least, is that she walks in to this bar saying, "I love," you're standing there by the record machine, and then she looks at the camera and it's like, like, oh my God, you are really, really amazing. And then she goes over to the jukebox and the guy is like, pouty lips and big dewy eyes. I'm like, you are totally a sub. And she's like, nah. And it turns out that it's one of her bandmates. And I'm like, oh, this gets very complicated. But it was really out there.
Well, and then she also, I feel like John Stamos started to steal her style too at some point because he also started wearing his hair very much like her and like wearing this like the leather jacket look.
John Stamos is hot.
He's so hot, but Joan Jett is like I think she's the reason he looks that way. I think that's where he styled himself from. But I would say this is like at the time, I think that we didn't see women like that on television because we were still like in this idea of like wholesome television female characters, right? All the girls had long blonde hair, and all the dudes were like the khaki. Adrienne's like, "What are you saying to me?" And everyone was very wholesome, and I think that the Runaways and Joan Jett and like all of those rock stars at that point were just. They were rediscovering and kind of redefining what women look like just by cutting their hair.
And Chrissy Hind.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God, very similar look.
Yes.
Not quite as
the
intense.
little shaggy short mullets.
Yeah.
Yes.
I totally did. I totally copied Chrissy Hind. I'm like, I brought Chrissy Hind to my picture of her to my hairdresser. I'm like, this is what I want to look like. My hairdresser wisely did not say, "There's no way you're going to pull this look off, girl." She just cut my hair.
Well, and then at the same time, we're like dealing with people like Debbie Gibson with like big hats and like she looks like she came out of the mall and the mall culture was super hot at the point. So to see someone who's like from the city and who's just like being a badass was very titillating for me.
So were you like taking on the look wanting to be Joan Jett or were you wanting to sleep with Joan Jett?
Oh, I think both.
Yeah.
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 I mean, we would have been a full lesbian couple. We would just look exactly the same all the time. But But we wouldn't have matching U-Hauls. We would just we would just be on motorcycles.
Motorcycles. Yes, motorcycles. Adrienne, what are you thinking of all of this?
I think this part's checking out to the Elizabeth I know. How old are you in the Joan Jett scenario?
God, I think the Runaways were probably late 70s. Same period, you know.
You're still like 9 or 10?
No, I think once I rediscovered the bands, I probably got more into music around 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Like that I was really getting hardcore into it.
Finding yourself.
Because by the time I think I was 15, I was just like, how do I get out of this house so I can go to concerts, you know?
Yeah.
It's very interesting to grow up, like figure out who you are.
For sure.
I think the 80s was like a very controversial, like it was not controversial, but it was very like, it was a hard culture because people were so different in ways, but we weren't really giving a lot of attention to subcultures at that point. I think that kind of came more in the 90s. But even in the 80s, so there's like the rock and roll and the feminists who are like, I'm not going to wear my hair this way. And then the Debbie Gibsons. We then also get introduced to Salt and Peppa.
I love Salt and Peppa.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yes, of course.
Obviously.
But it was 3 like very major music groups but then trying to find their way.
Yeah, and then but then you have like this Duran Duran moment. I was a huge Duranie. I was a huge Duranie.
Gotta be.
Yeah, and like this kind of like androgyny for men. So hot.
Yeah.
It was just like everyone's wearing makeup, everyone's doing
Flock of seagulls.
Oh my God. It was juicy. It was a juicy time.
Then you throw in the hair metal bands. We had Van Halen and Motley Crue. Yeah.
Yes. David Lee Roth.
Wild. It was a wild time.
It was a wild time. It really was wild.
I was having the best time at 11. Crazy.
I was already in college, so I was like, rock on, my friends. Adrienne, what's going on? Where are you at with all of this?
About my sexual awakening?
Yes.
I mean, I think that mine is sort of depressing for me as overall, you know. Like Elizabeth and I talk about this a lot. I think mine can be really described just as like khakis. You know, that's my sexuality. Like, I really think now it is formed from Sweet Valley High, obviously, J. Crew catalogs, like from when I'm like a preteen, just like that Americana, like a man rowing a boat in khakis.
Manufactured Americana.
Yeah, of course. But like, to me, it was just like Americana. Like, this is what it is. Yeah. Like, how do I fuck a guy in a rugby and khakis in a fucking boat?
They were all like super college prep. So that like this at this timeline, it's like later 80s, early 90s.
Like
right?
Saved by the Bell, Zach Morris would have been.
Striped shirt, long sleeve,
polo,
white collar. Yeah.
A popped polo. Yeah. I mean, it's gross, right? And then when I was in college, Abercrombie was the thing. Or like when I was in high school and college. And, you know, all those catalogs were so sexualized. The posters were so sexualized, but like they were all, you know, photographed by this gay man who was making the boys.
Bruce Weber.
Yeah, I mean, and looking through that lens, it really makes a lot of sense. But they were like so hot with their fucking khakis. They're a different kind of khakis, right? Like the J. Crew khakis were Americana, and then like once it was like high school and college, it was the cargo pant. You remember the khaki cargo pant slung really low.
Really low.
Yeah. And, point being, I don't think any of this worked out for me in like any positive way. I mean, I married a man. He wasn't wearing Abercrombie on our wedding day, but really probably up to it. But on the honeymoon, like, yes, of course.
What did you find so sexy about like Abercrombie Fitch kind of?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm very literal, and you know that like I think the thing Elizabeth and I talk about a lot about like both growing up in the suburbs and like consuming a lot of the same media was that we took it very differently. Like I know that she just used long blonde hair as a pejorative, which was hurtful to me because I am a woman with blonde hair. But point being, when we were growing up, I would see those images and think they were aspirational, that like that's what I should try to be.
Which they were.
Right. But she would look at those images and be like, well, I can never be this because this is not what I am.
That's correct.
So she was like, I can be Joan Jett though, right? So she like took a turn, and I just was like, if I could marry someone with generational wealth, I didn't understand that's what we were talking about, right? But that's what J. Crew catalogs were. It was
Absolutely.
like
If you're playing rugby,
right,
like
exactly.
generational
It was
wealth. Their
like
college backgrounds.
Yachts were in fucking Maine, LL Bean. Like, I was like, this is the vibe, right? We're going to go to Yale. Like, we're going to
These Pendleton blankets.
100%. Yes, let's monogram shit.
Yep.
I will still monogram shit today, even.
That is not a lie, Karen. That is not a lie. She has like a work blouse that has like her monogram on it.
You love it,
just in
though.
case no one knows who she is.
First
at
of
work.
all, she has complimented that shirt, and it's very fucking cute. You know it is, but it is. It was. I did purchase it from like a Southern company. But
We'll return to our conversation in a moment. Just a few simple sentences can change your intimate life. Want to know what they are? Download the free guide, Say It Better in Bed, 3 practical ways to improve intimate communication, to get easy tools to put into action immediately. Go to wildandsublime.com to get yours. But I want to go to the sex part.
Yeah, sure.
Which is the way I'm, put
Wired.
together. Wired. Which is, okay, so you had J. Crew, which had, the models wore way more clothing. And then you, Abercrombie and Fitch, I was looking at the ads today.
Oh, God, they were hot.
They were like so close to porn.
Yes.
It was local.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God.
And they would blow those posters up to like
huge. Did you ever walk into the store back when it was like popping off?
Yeah.
Because you'd walk in, there's barely any light.
Yeah.
It's just like these lights that would like show off on these like young
just the
looking
posters.
dudes.
My ex-husband worked at an Abercrombie, and he said that they used to literally. I can still smell the cologne if I think of it. Like if I thought hard, it was called Woods, and they would just dump bottles
Woods
of it
instead of wood.
Yeah, but they would just
Plural
they would
of wood.
dump bottles of it on the carpet. Like,
oh my God.
Every night. 'Cause you'd go in and you would be hit with the smell, and then you'd have these men, and then you'd go to a fraternity party and fuck a guy who smelled like this. I mean, it's very like, it's a circle.
Yeah, I can see your eyes are kind of get crazy.
Well, because I'm like, wow.
She's like feral.
Well,
She's like,
no, because it's more that I'm like, man, I've been so fucked up by like capitalism overall, right?
Yeah,
but like
for
that
sure.
was the goal. Like you would
Sure.
like be like, I want to fuck a guy in this sweater that smells like this. Obviously, they never looked like the catalogs. But I fucked some guys with good bodies, though, for sure.
You're actually,
Not recently.
You're actually bringing back a memory of me on a dance floor with a guy in chinos with a very crisp button down.
Yeah.
And putting out my hand and touching his chest, and it was rock hard.
Ugh.
And I was like,
You don't always know what's happening under those blouses.
You don't. But it was an Abercrombie moment of like, no, you really are as hard as the models. This rocks.
And I think at that time too, that was a whole other image that was being portrayed on TV a lot. I mean, like Alex
For sure,
P.
the
Keaton,
Zach Morris of the world, 90210, like the Brandon. I would have been Brandon. You would have been Dylan McKay.
Yes,
obviously. Until then, we fought and swapped.
Or I'll join in,
Well, no, because that wasn't the vibe.
Yeah, she wouldn't have done it.
Well, not in the 90210.
Oh, back that, yeah. So I'm saying it would have ruined your Kelly experience,
right?
Well, I mean, let's get back to just the way the ads were constructed. It was mostly, I mean, I think for most of these ads were all white people. And I think it's interesting. I mean, Elizabeth, were you rejecting the whole thing because you were a person of color? Was it just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be what was your like complete rejection of like, I'm never going to be a part of this about, or I don't even want to be a part of it?
Yeah, I think, to what Adrienne's talking about with Sweet Valley High was like, I've never was going to be part of the cool kids. I also was in the military family at first. So it was like, you couldn't stay in a cool kid situation even if you wanted to, because you were moving around, and every time you move around you have to start over again. But my mother didn't look like other mothers. She was Korean or is Korean. She still is. She hasn't changed that about herself.
Yeah, if you were in a Sweet Valley High book, you would have been a special guest star, one novel.
Right.
That's
right.
it.
They probably wouldn't make a space for us because they never did for anyone else.
Well, no, they had, I think, didn't they, towards the end of their run, have special guests?
No, only
people
Annie
of
the
color?
Slut.
Was she a person of color?
No,
and a slut?
No, she was just a slut. Annie, remember?
Yeah, but I think I'm saying towards the end of their run, I think they
Maybe.
had. Like 90210 would also be similar, right? Like you'd have a special guest star of like a person of color would come on for
Right.
like one episode for one specific storyline.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like at the time, because I was surrounded by so many images of white folks, and when I was going to school, those are the girls that I saw dating a lot of boys. And I think the idea to me was more that like I just didn't fit the normal standards of beauty. And because of that, I could never be an Abercrombie and Fitch model. You know, we were just mentioning United Colors of Benetton. I think that was like probably the first real ad campaign I'd seen where I was like, whoa, like people with dark skin can be on ads, like people with like freckles can be on ads. Before
That
that
was really it was so performative.
it was
now,
yeah, right.
But
Oh my
like,
God, yeah.
but then it was revolutionary. I'd never
sure.
seen
Right.
anything like
Yeah.
that. Even during the supermodel ages, which was a highlight of. I remember being like a teenager when I first saw Iman, who was like a dark black beautiful woman married to David Bowie, and I remember being like, like just my breath taken away. And but even her, I was like, she's so beautiful because she had a lot of white standard beauty, right? So she's a dark skinned woman, and she's definitely a black woman, so we're not going to argue that. But she had like a thinner nose, and she was a thinner body. She wasn't like a chunky person, you know. She didn't have like a curvy and there weren't very many like Latina, because I'm also half Latin, you know, or Puerto Rican, and so like you didn't see those kind of bodies very often either. Although I know Selena was around probably then, but I just wasn't exposed to her at that point. I will tell you that one of my most formative memories is feeling like my mother was not beautiful like all the other moms, because I hadn't seen very many women except for like my friends' moms like that, right? And one day I'm sitting in my living room, and China Girl by David Bowie came on.
Yeah, jeez.
And I lost my ever-loving mind, because I don't think that, like, to me in my brain, that's the first time I think I really like registered an Asian woman on television. And it's so terrible. It's a terrible video where like they dress her up as like a Chinese woman, and there's this part where it's like something about hushing your mouth, and she's like, shh, and she brings up this like one like very long nail, because Asian women, we love to get our nails done.
Yeah. Was it red?
And I was like, this moment to me, like, it was revolutionizing in my brain what sexy could be and what sexy looked like. Because I think the next woman that I remember being sexy that was Asian was from, was it Wayne's World?
Tia Carrera.
Tia Carrera. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But again, still very much white standard beauty.
Right. Yeah. Do you see, Adrienne, like, today, you talked about your first husband, but has the influence dissipated at all over time?
I don't think so. No, I think it's
No
I think
way.
totally to my detriment. Like,
So you're still in khaki head.
I think that, about 10 years ago, I like realized about myself, the thing that I think that I want is not actually like reflective of who I am or probably what would make me happy, but it's literally like imprinted on me. I think also it's like there's another shade of the khaki-ness, which is like dads, supportive dads who listen to Phil Collins, like dad.
I'm laughing because it's so true.
Maybe Phil Collins himself. Listen,
I'm wincing.
when,
I'm like,
when my book comes out in 2 years, you guys are all going to be like, oh.
No, I totally, I'm on, I understand.
Because
this
that
about you.
standard is there, I think. Don't you think? Like,
Yeah, I do. I think this is a hard part for me, because I think of you as like somebody who's very sexy, someone who's very beautiful. And when I think of khaki pants and like chinos and woods,
Yeah.
I think boner like deflate. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing
Yes.
to me that I can feel is like sexy about that image.
yes.
Well, so I'm curious about that.
Yes.
I would like
So
to. I
am
would
I.
actually like to kind of bring up an alternative viewpoint,
Sure,
which
yes.
is when I look at khaki and I look at like pressed shirts, I also think of like a mask. Like, so we talk about woods is like the wood beneath the khaki,
Yeah.
or like what is beneath the facade of, because it's very homogenized. It's very, I don't know, unthreatening. And so it's you talked about how you realized 10 years ago that probably wasn't going to make you happy. So what is beneath the khaki for you?
Like, why do I like that, or why do I think that that's
no? What do you think is beneath the khaki for you?
I don't know. I mean, I think for sure there was an element as I was growing up that was like about safety, you know, and like like I would never fuck around with some of the shit Elizabeth is fine with fucking around with ever. Like, not even if Elizabeth and I she knows it's true though. Yeah.
I'm mouthing to Elizabeth, what are you into?
No, she knows. No, I'm just saying, like, even if we walked into a bar, right, and Eminem was there, she would beeline right over.
Oh, yeah.
She'd be like, oh, I'm so into this. And I would be like, this, if he tried to talk to me, I'd be like, no, this is a dangerous situation. Like, I think it's just like, but you also have to remember, like, when I was in college, it was 1998 through like 2002. This was peak date rape, GHB, like culture, right? Like everyone like was like, you were tasked also as women. Like we would go, I remember being like in my sorority and like being sent to like an auditorium with all of Greek life to watch videos about protecting yourself against getting raped by fraternity boys, essentially, you know? So I was always the one that was like never ever being as drunk as everybody else, making sure my friends were making it home. So I think there was always this level of like, men are dangerous, you know, but like if you could hook up with like Alex P. Keaton in his khakis, or like, you know, even Zach Morris, like at the end of the day is a fucking solid guy. Like,
right, you're saying that it's like the sexiness, the like under the khakis moment is that you feel safe and you feel like you have the idea that this person is going to be safe.
We've talked about
able
this
to explore.
a lot.
Yeah.
She and I've talked about this a lot. I think I come off as like I'm a prude. I'm actually not at all. I'm a prude until I feel safe with you. And at that point, I'm like, we could do all sorts of shit, you know? I would probably be open to like other people joining all sorts of things, but like I'm very prudish until I'm like, this is a safe situation for me.
See, what's interesting is I look at khakis and I think, no way.
You should.
There's
yes.
something fucked
yes,
up.
Yes,
There
it's
is like,
businessman. It's capitalism. It's
well,
a
yeah.
nightmare.
There's like, ooh, you are probably like someone not. You're not into consent. You're probably not into.
Yes.
You probably like.
I think that's correct.
Patriarchal kind of.
Yeah. I saw this guy like over in Wrigleyville, you know, like he was getting off a bus and he like had pulled his shirt out of his khakis, and I was like, that was so hot. But you're completely correct. That's a date rapist. Like.
Yeah. Any cis man that's listening to this right now is like, I have to chuck all of my khakis.
No cis man is listening to this. And he's not taking what I have to say seriously.
Oh my God! So I'll bring my person into the ring here.
Oh, good. Yes.
We talk about iconic moments. So there I am. May 25th, 1977.
Wow, she's got a date on.
Oh, I do, because I looked it up. My mother and I go to the opening of Star Wars. Ew. And I was a kid that was when I was a kid, I was really into television and movies. I read up on them. I read, hotly anticipated movies. I would mark my calendar of like when the release date was. I would be looking at the TV guide for all of the new TV shows coming out. I was so into pop culture. And so I was hotly anticipating Star Wars, and my mother and I were up in Wisconsin at Lake Geneva. It was May 25th, obviously Labor Day weekend, and I'm dragging my mother to Star Wars because I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be packed. But since it was Lake Geneva, there were 12 people in the audience.
What?
I don't know what happened.
A lot of khakis in Lake Geneva. I would
Yes,
just like to
you're
say,
not wrong. You're not
I'm
wrong.
like she. Khaki Central.
But there we are, the big scroll of words at the beginning of iconic scroll of words at the beginning of Star Wars, and there's Mark Hamill. I'm like, oh my God, Mark Hamill. And like my little heart is like, oh, he's so cute. And my brain is kind of exploding about the cuteness. And then Han Solo enters.
That's a palatable bad guy.
Yes.
I mean, I can get on that, bad
my.
boy, but he's like very like a bad boy for everyone.
Right.
Bad boy for everyone.
Yeah.
Right, and he's kind of a safe bad boy because
100%.
he gets you find out later.
We put
he's
the
not a
leather
bad person.
jacket on
Yeah.
him, but
Well,
heart of gold.
It was everything. It was the black boots.
Yeah.
It was the low slung hip holster that also ties to his thigh.
You can order that from one of my friends.
There was the, V-cut shirt with the chest hair. I mean, it was all in the flak jacket, the flak vest. It was all coming at me, like my little mind was exploding, and I was starting to feel things like Mark Hamill out of the picture. Immediately out of the picture.
Well, I think that was a good choice. Like, you put them next to each other. The sexual energy is definitely coming from
also,
Harrison.
Mark Hamill felt so boy compared to like once Han Solo came on. You're like, that's a man.
That is a man. That was it. That was a man,
Yeah.
right? And I think for me, it was like kind of that iconic, emotionally available, wisecracking guy, right? That just then carried through, most of my life until quite recently. So it's been interesting, like, because it's not been really about Harrison Ford. It was like kind of this iconic character of Han Solo who will help you at the end, right? He will save you at the end,
right?
But you have to go through a fuck ton of shit.
You have to earn it in some way, right?
Like, I suppose, yeah.
Like he has to like be able to trust you. He has to make sure you have his back.
It's all about his stuff,
right?
It's all about his stuff and coming, being able to come to the plate for that. Adrienne, what are you thinking?
About Han Solo?
Yeah, about anything.
I mean, I was thinking, doesn't he wear some form of khakis, actually? Doesn't
You're not wrong.
Doesn't he
does
have
have
like
some,
sort
like-
of a cargo pant?
No, I don't think so. No.
think
No,
he does.
his pants are though like that
No.
color.
He is not wearing
What are you
denim.
talking about? He's wearing black pants.
No,
Wait, is he really?
Yes.
She might be right.
Tight black pants.
I think he at least.
I
in
feel like this
later
is that
years-
moment where everyone talks about in Risky Business. Like, is the shirt white or is it pink?
No one talks about.
What are you
that.
talking
Yeah,
about?
the risky business one. Oh, is it whether he wears sunglasses or he doesn't wear sunglasses?
Yeah, you're talking about the pink dress, blue
Yeah,
dress.
sorry, I got those
thing.
two mixed up.
Yeah.
There's a scene in Risky Business where Tom Cruise is like in his underwear and
Yeah, he's
like a dress
dancing around.
shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always a debate about whether or not he's wearing glasses or sunglasses or not sunglasses because I think everyone remembers him with sunglasses.
But he's not.
But he doesn't have them on.
Oh. I mean,
Yeah.
I am
think that's the
thinking
case.
as you're talking about Harrison Ford and that like my extension of the khakis extends to essentially Brad Pitt, which is like I'm so bland. I'm so literal. It's like
I'm
so,
sorry, Brad Pitt is justifiably incredibly hot.
for sure. But like
me
I
a
think
break.
my
Come
own
on.
choices are just very predictable. But Legends of the Fall is really the moment where I remember seeing it in 1994. I was 14 years old. He fucking flips that hat and the literal orgasm flies off of it. And I was just like, holy shit. And then he just spends the whole movie riding on a fucking horse with his hair flowing in the wind. Oh my God.
But don't you think that Harrison Ford and Star Wars and like Brad Pitt, Legends of the Fall, they're very similar.
Yeah.
They're both adventurers. They're both rugged. I would say
Well,
rugged
if
is probably the
anything,
word for
Harrison
it.
Ford is better because Brad Pitt's very mentally ill. Legends of the Fall, which I think I really took literally as like, that's okay. You wait forever for your guy, even if he's a fucking mess, right?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah,
Because I wouldn't.
I took a lot of shit literally, you guys, like a lot. I was not guided.
Karen's got a question.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kind of sitting with everything we've talked about here. Anything burbling up for either of you?
No, I want to know after Harrison Ford, after you saw him, you're like, I'm hot for Harrison Ford. Then who was your next crush?
Oh my God. I mean, really, the Han Solo years were long years. They were long years, but I'm really
Deservedly.
I'm
gonna
trying
look
to
up a
think like
picture
who
of what
was
he's
really.
wearing.
I'm trying. He's got his hand is back and he's
Yes.
holding the blaster. It's like this icon, and he's crouched
And
like
he's wearing like the leather vest.
Yes, everyone knows this. Everyone knows this look. I'm trying to think who the next person I was really nuts over. I don't know. It's just. I'm laughing about the Han Solo years, but honestly, it just seemed like. Yeah, it just seemed like there were just a ton of folks.
Did
I
you
was
think
into.
though from that you were looking for men to save you? Then did it imprint on you that way? You're right. He has on darker pants here with knee-high boots.
I know the boots. The boots was kind of a thing. The boots were kind of a thing for me.
That is definitely like Richie Rich collegiate stuff.
Yeah, the knee-high leather boots.
Well, he might get on a horse in space. There's those weird animals they ride
Oh, right.
that
yeah.
look like dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were more nerds, we would know what they were called.
Yeah, but we're cool.
Yeah.
I'm like just still scrolling because I'm like, I swear to God, he's wearing khakis somewhere.
He
but
never
no,
wears khakis
You're
ever.
right.
I,
You're right.
I would reject him.
But he has that khaki energy. I always loved the
That
No,
khaki
he doesn't.
energy.
No,
but
he
I
does
mean
not have-
that like wisecracking frat boy energy. I like and have always liked. I like it much less now, which is why I stay single, because I'd be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But I would have been wildly charmed by it for most of my life. It's true.
After like these moments for all of us, right? Like how did it all expand from there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like how did things? Because then you're like, oh, I love Han Solo or I love Brad Pitt, and then did you just stay in the same lane? I mean, I think Adrienne's going to say yes, but
What in terms of like celebrity crushes?
who you're sexually attracted to, like in the real world, and did it go into any other different direction? You know, like did you ever stop and go like, well, maybe I don't want khakis. I definitely do want a bad boy. I know that's probably an answer.
I mean, the
no,
hottest guy I ever and the best sex I ever had was with my Australian boyfriend.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, he was like a mountain climber and an adventurer and like a lot of fun, an Enneagram 7. And he was very cute, but he, you know, it wasn't like a Brad Pitt situation. But he was very good. I guess I think for me, I respond to being made to feel safe, which most people don't take the time to do. And I think because I'm very outspoken and confident, I think people don't think that that's something I would need or be interested in. But I'm just not interested. And he was very good at that from the very beginning. And I was like, oh, shit. All right. Give this guy control. Fuck it. Give him the keys. You know?
No, I do understand that. I mean, I think consistency is a very... men that exhibit consistency and stability do score very high with me. I'm not into danger seekers. I mean, that's where I veer away from the Han Solo. I'm not into people that court danger or like the bad boys to the point where they are courting danger or doing like very,
But Han would have been a
risky.
great lover. You can tell. A lot of that bravado is just for the ship. You know, you can tell once you're in the cabin.
Yeah, I think he would.
He
be
would have
very
been
hot.
very sweet. He would have. I feel like he'd be like, "Are you all right? Is this okay? Don't you think?"
Are you okay if I touch you here? It's probably I mean,
I feel like he
think
would
he's
have
probably
been-
very respectful of women.
I think so. I think so. That's
I
hot.
think he
It's
would
fucking
fall-
hot.
fall into
See,
that.
these are questions I did not ask myself as a 12-year-old.
No, of course
But
not.
now I suppose
Well,
middle-aged I am.
to be clear, I do not think Brad Pitt would be good in bed ever, then or now. I 100%. He's way too hot. He's like fucking stoned all the time or drunk. You know, like I don't think he is. I think I'd be thrilled to be there, but I don't think that I would have been like, wow, that was like really great sex.
Like he's going to take off his shirt and just be like, "You can touch me."
Yeah, I just think he's, you know,
I grant you permission to
Right.
touch me.
I could be wrong, but I feel like he's sort of disassociated and like, you know, I do not think it would ever achieve what my idea, you know, I don't think it would be.
What about Joan Jett? Do you think she would be great in bed?
I think she would be so fun. Yeah. Don't you think? I think she's probably very soft-hearted in some way. You know, like I
Yeah.
think she would be gentle and she would be fun, and then other nights she would be wild and like just make you write it all out. Like,
Kind of a Gina Gershon.
Literally.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think it's you know, I think about this a lot about like how sexuality changes as you get older, and like I really reflect, you know, especially because of our podcast. Our podcast, Don't Ruin This For Me.
Don't ruin this
Yes,
for me.
don't ruin
Also
this for me.
available,
You can find it on
the
our,
Lincoln Lodge
Spotify,
Network.
Apple.
Don't ruin this for me. Don't ruin this for me.
Lincoln Lodge Network, new season.
I definitely think that like as we get older and we kind of understand what we like about sex or what we like about sexuality changes as we go along. Joan Jett, for sure. I'm still sticking with her. Gopher, sorry, you're out.
You would never fuck him in real life.
I would never,
no.
not now, no.
No.
But I do think that I have come to a realization over only the last few years is kind of an understanding about like my sexual trauma and what I actually really want from sex and what I think is important in sex, right? So I think like when I was younger, I'd be like, just do all the things you want to do, you know, like whatever. But now I'm like, I'm just going to lay on my back. Like, you know?
No, but I mean, you're bringing up a really great thing. I mean, I've done a lot of trauma work in the past couple of years, and it has substantially changed how I view partners or the partners I want to be with.
Right.
Right. And I think that's, I can look at the Han Solos of the world and I'm like, okay, whatever, black boots aside, there will always be black boots. But, it's like, do I want someone who's just not going to show up? Of course not.
Right.
So.
Right. And I think having someone who cares about what's going on with you and your body. And I think to Adrienne's point is about feeling safe enough with someone to actually just be yourself, because then I think it's just fun. There's not as much work or like performance. I think that Joan and I would get very cozy. she would understand exactly what I need, and I'd show her what she does.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. I wouldn't. I'd probably just fall asleep. Thanks, Joan.
I suppose it remains to be seen.
Yeah, well, we'll try to work it out. She's still around.
She is.
She probably has her assistant fuck me. So wait, did I just say that out loud? Sorry. She's just like, can you take care of her, please? She's young.
Would the assistant be a mini Joan Jett?
Oh my God, that would
Obviously.
be amazing.
Obviously.
Just a double.
She has an avatar. She's rich enough.
Yeah.
She just sends it out.
Well, folks, Elizabeth Gomez, Adrienne Gunn, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Wild and Sublime is supported in part by our Sublime supporter, Full Color Life Therapy. Therapy for all of you at fullcolorlifetherapy.com. Thank you for listening. Know someone who'd like this episode? Send it to them. You can follow us on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Wild and Sublime, and sign up for newsletters at wildandsublime.com. Got feedback or an inquiry? Contact us at info@wildandsublime.com. And we'd love a review or rating on your podcast player. I'd like to thank our design guru, Jean-François Gervais. Music by David Ben-Porat. This episode was produced and edited by Christine Ferreira at the Lincoln Lodge Podcast Studio as part of the Lincoln Lodge Podcast Network.